Welcome to the Messy Middle Road Trip podcast. We are thrilled to have a dynamic speaker join us on today's show. She's a 7-time author, entrepreneur, fellow podcaster, award-winning speaker, and 2-time TEDx presenter, Angela Lussier. Angela admits that she was a shy kid with social anxiety and grew up making a terrifying observation that the best leaders were amazing communicators and impressive public speakers. Facing her fears, she jumped into the world of learning how to find her voice and founded a network of public speaking clubs called Speaker Sisterhood. We know you'll love it, so let's grab the snacks, call shotgun, and hit the road for another episode.
I'm Sandra.
And I'm Nicole, and we're entrepreneurs,
Wives,
a mom,
a favorite auntie,
creative souls,
and women who are fearlessly navigating the middle of life.
We created a community of women over 40 who embrace the past, appreciate where we are now, and take action to live our best life, because it's all about the journey. Hi, Angela.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited we have snacks. This is the best.
Road trip ever.
Yes.
So we're going to start off asking the question we ask all our guests. If you could run off on an epic road trip with any person living or dead, who would it be? And bonus points if you know where you're going.
Okay, this is an easy question. I love Dax Shepard. Do you guys know him?
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
His podcast, Armchair Expert, is my favorite podcast. I listen to it every week, and every episode I fall deeper and deeper in love with him. I just love how insightful he is, how funny he is, how fun he is. So I would take him on a road trip, and I would do a cross-country road trip through the southern states. I've done the northern states, but I want to go through all the southern states.
That's excellent. Have you seen the video with, I can't remember, I think it was just the two of them. It was he and his wife, Kristen Bell, and they went to Africa.
Yes.
But they were singing the Africa song,
Yes.
And they were like zebras behind them, and they got in trouble.
Oh, they did?
From the country. It was like,
oh.
Yeah.
Like
so
they weren't supposed
something
to be
tells me
close.
your shenanigans would end getting you in a little bit of trouble, but that's okay. It'd be fun in the process, right?
Yeah, I think we'd get into a lot of trouble, which would be fine with me.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. So I want to just disclose that I have known Angela for a number of years now, and I really appreciate and admire the work that she has been doing with Speaker Sisterhood. For anyone who has seen you speak, you are so comfortable and you're so dynamic and really engaging. And it seems like you were always meant to do this work. Tell us, is that true?
It's still funny to me to hear that. Like, as you're saying that, I'm like, there's no way that's true. I was so shy as a kid. And even in my teens and my early 20s, I was really shy entering the workforce and just felt like, well, I'll just work hard enough that people will notice me, and I'll work my way up just by proving myself. And really quickly found out that if you can't advocate for yourself, and if you can't have your own voice in the workplace and share your ideas, it's really hard to be noticed. And I thought, this is a problem that will haunt me for years if I don't do something about it. And so I started to go to Toastmasters, which is a public speaking training organization. And it was the hardest thing in the world to walk into a meeting and even just sit there and watch other people give speeches, because I thought at any moment someone could call on me. At any moment I could have to say
that
something.
fear you have in the classroom where you're like, not it.
Right. Don't make eye contact.
You keep doing that much.
Yeah. If I don't see them, they won't see me. So I had attended those meetings for 6 months without ever saying a word, and thought, like, just by watching other people give speeches, I was learning how to be a better speaker.
Of course. Yeah.
And it wasn't until the president of the club came up to me and said, we want to put you on the schedule to speak. And I was like, well, I'm not ready to speak. I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, you'll never be ready. You just have to start. And that one sentence really sent me on a really long journey of just saying to myself over and over again, yeah, I'm not ready to say anything. I don't even think I have anything to say, but if I don't start, I'm never going to say anything. So I just, I started speaking, and it was terrifying. And every time I got up, my knees were shaking, my hands were sweating, my heart was racing. I wanted to be anywhere but there. You know, it's like when you have to like sit down to write an important email, and then your first thought is, well, I should probably do the laundry first, or don't I need to paint the whole house? Like those are the kinds of things that would come up when I thought about
Those
giving
avoidance tactics. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. But I just kept going to the meetings and giving speeches, and then came to realize I actually love public speaking, it took me years and years to get there, but I love being in front of people. I like using comedy as a way to teach. I like storytelling. I love helping people, and all of those things are possible through public speaking. So it's been a long road. It was 2006 when I first went to Toastmasters. So it's now, 14 years later.
Wow.
And I feel like, yeah, I can do this.
Have you ever touched base with the gentleman who tapped you for speaking and like said, hey, look at me now, 14 years later?
Not him specifically, but there was another guy in that club that I connected with like 5 years ago, and he's a financial planner a couple of towns over, and I went and met with him, and he's like, yeah, I've been watching you ever since then, and I'm just blown away that you took it so seriously and you did what you did, because I saw you in those first couple years, and no one would have ever guessed that you could be doing what you're doing now. And it made me so proud to hear him say that. Because, when you're on a journey by yourself, you're like, have I really come this far? Is this what really happened? And then when someone else validates it, because they watched it too, you're like, okay, yeah, that was really happening.
I'm curious, like when you started to feel comfortable, like when that happened, what did it feel like? It was a moment that you had where you realized like, oh, this is actually fun. I'm not shaking in my boots at this moment. Like I'm actually engaged. Can you remember that moment?
I do remember that moment. It was 3 years after I started speaking. It was in 2009, and I had started my own company as a career coach, and I was going out and doing workshops on topics like, job searching and resumes. And it was probably 3 or 4 months into giving workshops when one day I decided to veer off the agenda of like, here's all the information. And I just decided to tell a story about a time when I was scared about networking. And all of a sudden, everything changed for me because I saw the audience's posture change and I saw their response to me change. And after that workshop, so many more people came up to me to say, I felt the same way networking. And I also am scared of talking to people I don't know. And I realized in that workshop, when you share yourself and you really are vulnerable and true and honest in front of a room, it changes what public speaking is. It's no longer about, here, I have information to share with you. It becomes a service, and it becomes a connection point where you become a human, they're all human, and they see you that way. And it's not like, oh, I'm here just because I need like information. It's like, oh, I'm going to be part of an experience with this person, and it's going to be special, and it's going to be different from what I expected. So that was the moment when I realized like, this is a really cool thing. And I like it. I like it because I can be myself and I don't have to pretend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think oftentimes when people are just watching PowerPoint, that's when they glaze over. But when there is that real connection where they can either resonate with what you're saying or have a chuckle over a moment, I think that's when the connection really begins and people start to listen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you probably know about my hatred for PowerPoint because it really, I talk about it every once in a while. It takes so much away from that human connection because you're constantly looking up at a screen, looking back at a person, looking up at a screen, and you're reading text. And it's just really destroying that whole special flow that happens between the presenter and the audience. And I know why people use it. I think it has a place, but unfortunately, it dampens that whole that special connection that can happen just from talking, just from sharing and being real.
Yeah.
I love that. Sure. I got goosebumps when you told that story about how you saw the light in people's eyes change and their posture change. And like, I can imagine being in that room with you at that moment and feeling that little boost of like, oh, I could do this. This is where I'm meant to be. So that's transformative. I love that.
Thanks.
So Angela, talk to us a little bit about your years of training, because my understanding is you went through 5 years of training. Like, what did that look like?
Well, it was 5 years at Toastmasters, and I was in two different clubs. I joined Pioneer Valley Toastmasters first, and that was the biggest club in Western Massachusetts. And after 2 years in that club, I became the president. And then I joined Pro Speakers, which is the club for professional speakers. It was members from New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts that all came together. And there were only, I think, 10 or 12 of us in that club. And I also became the district officer for public relations. So I got really, really involved with the organization because I kept seeing that every time I said yes to something, I would grow and I would become better as a leader and better as a communicator. So I was doing a lot of public speaking, and I was also going to their conferences, and I was on their committees, and I was speaking at the conferences. And it was a lot about learning what I wanted to share with people and how I wanted to share it. Because public speaking in itself is a skill set, but then there's standing in front of the room and deciding, like, what do I actually want these people to know? And that is such a hard decision to make, because it's not just about the topic, it's about showing yourself. And how much do I want to show? And every speech I gave, I would show a little bit more and a little bit more. And then the speeches became less about the content and more about the delivery. Like, how can I be creative in the way that I share this? Can I add a little bit of like props, or could I add some exercises and some audience interaction? And the more I did that, the more effective I found that the talks were, because I was getting away from a cookie cutter outline of what a speech is supposed to be, and was making my speeches more like kindergarten, which is like, how can I make this fun? How can I make it easy, simple, light? And when I did that, I found people left with a smile on their face. They left feeling like they got something, they had a real experience, and they enjoyed themselves, and they met some people. And that's what it's all about. Like, no one wants to sit through a boring presentation. That's what I learned. And like, there's so many boring presentations. And like, why do we keep doing this?
Well, don't you think some of the reason people do it is because they're nervous?
Yes.
And once we're able to get beyond those nerves and to be fully, like, instead of being up here in our brain, being more into our heart and really just kind of connecting with the topic that we're getting into.
Totally. It's so much about inexperience and just wanting to get it done and not drawing too much attention and not embarrassing yourself and not wanting to go too far outside, or people are going to go, this is really weird. What is this person doing? But when you build the confidence and you practice and you see what works and what doesn't, it's okay to go a little bit outside the box, because you know this is going to be great. They don't know this yet, but I know this. And that's why when people say, what's the secret to becoming a great public speaker? I'm always like, okay, this answer might disappoint you, but it's practice. It's not like you wake up with an epiphany and go, oh my God, I just figured it out. And like, you never have to do it. No, you have to do it a lot. And the more you do it, the more you see what works. And you find like, it's okay to do things that you've never seen before, because that's the stuff that gets people's attention.
I agree with that. And I think too, confidence is a big piece of it, because even if the inside of your stomach feels like it wants to go on the outside of your stomach, when you start speaking, you get those crazy butterflies and you feel like you're going to throw up, and you get all those adrenaline feelings. But if you step onto that stage and you present yourself as though you're confident, even though you are freaking out, that has a huge piece of it, I think, because eventually you do it more and you practice more, then your brain starts to buy into the fact like, okay, you're not going to die doing this, right? That's the big thing. Like, well, did you die? No, you survived it. Maybe it was a little shaky, or you had a little shake in your voice, but the fact that you were confident and stepped out there to do it, I think is a big piece. And it's interesting what you mentioned about having props or, humor. I will never forget, my second grade teacher did a whole unit on Japan. And from the perspective of kids learning about history and things that are in a totally different country, and just looking at the teacher like, ugh. But she showed up to school in full-blown geisha makeup with a kimono and a parasol, and her hair was done up with this bird of paradise. She looked beautiful. And we were wrapped with attention to every single word she said. And to this day, I remember that lesson. And I actually went as a geisha girl for Halloween that year. Like I was that motivated from what she had to say and the lessons that we learned. So it just goes to show it doesn't matter what area you're presenting in. Like you said, really tapping into that playfulness and how can I get the attention of the audience that I'm trying to reach? Like it's a big deal, kind of
Absolutely.
assessing that.
Yeah.
So whether that's corporate or second grade, you can still.
Yeah. And people say like, well, I work in a corporation. I can't be that crazy. I can't be that creative or fun. And my question is always why? Like everyone in your audience is still a person. You might work for a corporation, but they still want to have fun. They still have a desire to have their imagination, brought out. And just because they're wearing suits doesn't mean that they don't like to laugh,
Right. But I think we get caught up in that. I mean, I think that we tell ourselves that we're not supposed to be creative in this way. And again, I think it's so that we can sort of contain our nervousness. And maybe the way to really get beyond the nervousness is to have fun with it. But I also agree that practice is really, really important if you want to really find your style and find your level of comfort. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about ways in which people can practice. I mean, let's talk about Speaker Sisterhood, and let's talk about your podcast as well.
Okay. Well, when I first was thinking about doing Speaker Sisterhood, which we have to talk about Sandra for a second here, because Sandra is the whole reason that Speaker Sisterhood exists.
I did not know anything about this.
I know. Actually, I didn't share the story with you until I think last year.
Yeah.
I was doing an online course called the Speaking School for Women, and it's about how to become a professional speaker. And at the end of that course, Sandra was taking the course. She said, where do we go to practice these speeches that you just taught us to put together, like signature talks and stuff? And I said, go to Toastmasters. And several of the people in the group, including I think Sandra, said, well, I've been to Toastmasters and it didn't really work for me. What else is there? And that was the first time I really considered the fact that there was no alternative to Toastmasters. I had all the skills to build something that could be an alternative specifically for women. And so I put together an open house and just threw out a couple like flyers and a press release saying, hey, do you have trouble speaking up at meetings? Do you freak out before giving a presentation? Come check out this new group called Speaker Sisterhood. And I held an open house in Springfield, and 12 women showed up, and it was the most amazing night of my life because I thought that we were coming together to talk about public speaking. And when everyone went around the circle saying why they had come and what they wanted to learn, their reasoning was, I'm going back to the workplace. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years and I have no idea how to sell myself in an interview. Another woman said, I go to work every day. I try to speak up in a meeting and my boss always cuts me off or belittles my ideas. Another woman's there because she has no voice in her relationship. Another woman's there because she wants to start a business and has no confidence to do so. And as we're talking, I'm going, I haven't even heard the words public speaking yet. And yet what we're talking about here is building confidence in our voice as women. And we all need it in different places in our life. And this idea is so much bigger than I thought it was. And overnight, Speaker Sisterhood blew up. I mean, I started getting emails from women saying, my sister was at that open house, or my coworker was at that open house. Can I come? And before I knew it, I had filled up a group and I was starting a second group and then a third group. And I was thinking, we need this all over the world, and I'm not going to be able to do that by myself. And really quickly licensed the idea and started to train club leaders who could run other clubs around the country and around the world. And Speaker Sisterhood started to become synonymous with confidence and self-empowerment and community and following your dreams. And so Sandra, like asking that question, where can we go to practice our speech? It really became the beginning of a movement for women. And today we're going into our 4th year of Speaker Sisterhood. And I've received countless emails and phone calls and cards from members saying, this changed my life. I had no idea what I was walking into. I thought I was coming because I wanted to give a speech at work in front of my coworkers. And I ended up leaving an abusive marriage. I ended up leaving my job and starting a business that I've wanted to for 20 years. I've built new friendships, and I have like a whole group I have a sisterhood that I've never had before. And I'm sitting there going, I'm so glad, like I'm so proud and I'm so humbled and I'm so honored to be part of this transformation for so many women. We just welcomed our 500th member, and I
Wow.
just constantly feel like this is such a gift. Like it's such a cool organization to be leading and be part of. So
How many chapters do you have now, Angela?
right now, there are, I think, like 18 that are active. We've started close to 50 clubs, and in the beginning of any startup, you learn a lot about what works and what doesn't. And so there's been a lot of like trial and error over figuring out like what's the best skill set for a club leader to have, and where are the best places to start clubs. And during COVID, it's been really difficult with doing all of our meetings online. But I'm looking forward to building more chapters and getting this service out to more women, because this time in history, it's like more important than ever that we get our voice heard in conversations, in relationships, and in the workplace.
Absolutely. We have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Important things to say.
We do.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about your podcast, Claim the Stage? Because I have listened to it and have taken a lot from it as someone who is an inspiring speaker. Well, no, that's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is I hope to become an inspiring speaker.
Sandra, you are an inspiring speaker.
Okay. I am an inspiring speaker, and I am inspired by you through your podcast, but I want you to tell folks what it's about and what they can learn and gain from listening.
Okay. Well, Claim the Stage is a podcast for women who want to improve their speaking skills, and that's both on stage and in life. So I interview lots of authors and speakers, entrepreneurs, interesting people who have a perspective on the subject. And then I also do a lot of like solo episodes and Q&A episodes that are all about this whole process of finding your voice. And so we cover things like the fear of speaking up, how to build confidence, and then more of the technical stuff, like how do you put your content together, and how do you market a speech if you want to go out and like sell yourself as a speaker. And our most recent episode was called 4 Minutes of Truth, where I'm featuring different women who want to give a little speech on the podcast about what's true for them. And that was my favorite episode so far. I think it was episode 143. And it was a chance for them to say something about their life that maybe they can't say at home, or they just haven't had a chance to talk about, but it's been on their mind. And so we heard speeches about things like self-awareness, friendship, loneliness, building new habits, family, just stuff that we're all thinking about, and that connects us when we hear other people saying like, this is how I feel too.
Wow.
Yeah, awesome.
So Angela, you have a lot of accomplishments under your belt between your books and your podcast, your courses, your TEDx talks. What are you most proud of, and what's next?
Well, there's one thing that's not on that list that I'm most proud of, and that is becoming a mom. I became a mom last year, and I, for the longest time, was always thought, motherhood isn't for me. I really love my career. I love my creativity. I love my freedom. And last year I became a mom, and this past year has been the most transformational, most challenging, most, anyone who's had kids could probably agree. And I'm proud of taking that step and saying, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I've realized I can be a mom and be all those other things at the same time. And I'm excited to create more with this new perspective and with this new, I think, take on my life. And so I would say that, like having a baby.
Well, congratulations. That's a big accomplishment, and it should be right up there with all the rest. So
thanks.
I have a question for you, Angela. So for folks who are listening, who are thinking, well, I would love to be a part of Speaker Sisterhood. I would love to be a better speaker. And all of those things take a bit of time and take that practice. Would you be willing and able to give us like 1 or 2 tips just in our everyday that could bring us closer to being better speakers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing I really quickly started to see in the clubs when Speaker Sisterhood started was that we were doing public speaking, but what we were really doing was using public speaking as a tool for self-discovery. And by standing up in front of a group of people and saying, this is my truth, we were learning more about ourselves and what was important to us and our values and our learning edges and our strengths and weaknesses. And so if you don't have time to go to a Speaker Sisterhood meeting, but you want to kind of start working on building your voice, it's a little bit about doing the self-discovery work, like spending time journaling each night or each morning, where you ask yourself, like, what's important to me? And like, what do I need? And what are the things that are feeling scary to me right now? And those types of questions start to help you do that self-inquiry, that once you know that about yourself, it's easier to express it to other people and to start using your voice in a way that you maybe haven't been before. Another thing you can do is start to reach out to your friends and talk to them in a different way. I have a book called The Secret Life of Speaking Up prequel, and it has 30 tiny speaking adventures in it. And those tiny speaking adventures are just different ways to practice using your voice on a daily basis. So one of the adventures is think of 3 friends you have and think of why you love each of them, and then call them on the phone and tell them why you love them as a friend. And this experience might seem small, but it's actually huge, because oftentimes we spend years and years in friendships with people and we never express to them what we love about them. And it feels like this huge vulnerability to say that to somebody, but it's an opportunity for us to grow and to get closer to the people in our life and to, again, practice using our voice.
And who doesn't need that right now during COVID? We could all use a little boost.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, I did not know about that one exercise, that second one where you can call 3 friends and just tell them how you're feeling about them. I feel like I do that all the time.
You're so good at that.
But to have a structure to it, like, I think it is the beginning of how you can put your voice out in the world and to do it in a thoughtful way. And I love those 2 ideas.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. So, Angela, so many women in midlife get to the point where we stop worrying about what other people think. Why is it so important to find our voice and stand in our power during this stage of our life?
Well, I think we spend our first, 20s and 30s, the first like adult years, kind of trying to decide who we are, trying to like determine what's important to us. And then somewhere we get derailed. Like oftentimes it's just jumping into a career because we need a job, or starting a family and then getting really focused on being a great mom or being a great wife. And then all of a sudden your life has been swept away and into some other arena. And getting into midlife is sort of a time to reevaluate where you are and to say, is this where I want to be? And is this who I am? And where was I going before all those things happened? So this time is a good chance to peel back all the layers of shoulds and expectations that have piled up, and to start asking deeper questions about, like, what do I love and what matters, and what do I want the next 10 or 20 years to look like? And when I was starting Speaker Sisterhood, I had no idea what the age group was that was going to be attracted to the clubs. But over time, we've realized that our average member is 50 years old. Wow. And I was very surprised to learn that, because I thought that it might be like 35, because that's a time where you're trying to elevate your career and maybe wanting to look for a new skill set. But after talking with so many members, finding that no, now is the time when I'm really interested in like finding out who I am, instead of trying to comply with who I'm supposed to be. And I have time to do it. And I'm really engaged and interested in trying to see who I really am. And I haven't done that work yet. So I would say, like, so many women are already thinking about it. It's just like coming up because they're sick of feeling like they haven't found that yet.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think that age is a time when you really are diving into a little bit more about who you are, and that self-discovery piece that does just naturally happen through Speaker Sisterhood. It is a great tie-in to that time in your life. And I think that's when the storytelling really starts to come about. And that's really amazing to see.
Yeah. When I started at Toastmasters, I was 25 or 26, and there was nobody there, women or men, in that age group, and not even 35. And so I started to ask my friends, why don't you come to Toastmasters with me? I think you'd really like it. And everyone's like, why would I want to do that? That sounds horrible. And I also realized, like, if you don't need to learn public speaking, you're probably not going to. But if you start to realize, oh, there's actually more benefits to this that, come to change your life, that maybe it will be more attractive.
Your friends are probably like, no, I'll meet you after for a glass of wine.
Exactly. That's pretty much verbatim how that went.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Angela, you have been amazing today. And I have to thank you, because your connection with Sandra, I feel, how the universe just comes together. And I think Sandra's experience with Speaker Sisterhood has brought her to me. And so
Nicole.
Well, seriously, because I've seen Sandra's growth. And I actually mentioned that to her. The week that I asked her if she would co-host with me on the show moving forward was the week she was brave enough to start going live on her photography Facebook page every day to talk about something that was important to her. And she was natural, and she was genuine, and she was storytelling. And I thought she would be amazing. And here she is.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So I have to give you a big shout out, because I think you had a big piece in that puzzle. So
we have a success story right in front of us.
This
is so exciting.
Fantastic. So Angela, can you share with our listeners where people can find you if somebody's interested in learning more about Speaker Sisterhood, or even starting up a chapter? Like, what do they do? Where do they go?
Yeah, speakersisterhood.com has all of the information. We have a link to join the clubs, a link to start your own club. There's also information about the Claim the Stage podcast and how to find clubs. We have a whole club directory there. As I said, all of our clubs are meeting online right now, so you can check out any club for free as a guest and just get started. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at Speaker Sisterhood.
Fantastic. And just know that if you join a club, at some point you will be asked to speak.
It will come up. It will.
Yeah, it will come up. And I want to just give a little personal plug as a member of Speaker Sisterhood for the last 4 years. It really has been life-changing. And I know that may sound dramatic, but I think that when you find your voice and you find the confidence to put it out there in the world, it can change everything for the positive. And you are worth sharing your story and the things that you feel are important. And not only that, but there is a huge community of people just waiting for you to be a part of that. So I encourage folks, if they're interested in learning more, that they should run, not walk.
Thanks,
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much, Angela, for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Yay. All right, Sandra, you can kick it into the outro.
Okay. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Messy Middle Road Trip and feel inspired to speak up and find your voice in midlife.
If you want to keep the conversation going, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or at messymiddleroadtrip.com. And if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a rating and review so we can reach more amazing middlers.
We're looking forward to our next road trip with you. Until then, thanks for riding shotgun.